Is realism relevant to the 21st century? Some maintain that it is. Why? Well, firstly, conflict has always been a part of human nature, and it is safe to say that despite millennia of technological, cultural and social advancements, we are not so different from our ancient ancestors. In accordance with this, humanity always seeks power and wealth. These are beneficial and necessary for our survival. When we are too comfortable in a condition of extreme power and wealth, we develop hubris, excessive pride, or self-confidence, essentially arrogance that leads to our downfall in most cases. So, to bring this into context with international relations, we may want to consider a couple of case studies. Where better to start than the recent Iraq War? A liberal approach would suggest that the multinational force led by the US acted to replace the dictatorship headed by Saddam Hussein with a democratic regime and seize hypothetical stockpiles of WMDs. Why Iraq was chosen above any other dictatorship active in the world at the time is left unexplained from the liberal perspective. It is likely also that the invading forces led by the US knew that Iraq possessed no WMDs, since they probably would have been the ones to supply them. A realist perspective, then, would suggest that Iraq was chosen due to its geostrategic location and its vast oil reserves. A structural realist perspective would also suggest that America, as the sole superpower in a unipolar world, acted in accordance with this notion of hubris and believed that it could abuse its power and remain unopposed. Another case to consider would be the rise of the People's Republic of China. This represents a shift in the balance of power on the global stage, and it is a clear threat to other states across the world. Henceforth, realism predicts that other states will act cautiously with China, and tensions will rise accordingly. To mention realism again, it is suggested that the rise of China will shift the world into a bipolar state if it chooses to challenge America, and once again we may enter into a position of perpetual tension not dissimilar from the Cold War. Defensive realists, however, maintain that China will rise peacefully and be kept in check by other states, perhaps representing a shift into a multipolar world, and more conflictual dyads will increase the chance of potential war. These states are suggested to be BRICS: Brazil, Russia, India, China. This multipolar world does exist to an extent today. Going back to the natural human trait of survival, states continue to compete in a nuclear arms race. Israel, India, Pakistan, North Korea, and Iran are good examples of these. However, some argue that realism is irrelevant in the present day. One of the most immediate criticisms is that realism as a theory is far too simplistic in the modern world, focusing only on states and ignoring networks and corporations and the influence that these might have. A point extending from this is that realism considers states to be the key threat. In the War on Terror, the threat that NATO faces is not a fixed state, but is instead a network of insurgents. This is not conventional warfare. This is so-called fourth-generation warfare, otherwise known as asymmetrical war, in which the technologically superior invading force adopts tactics and equipment that are inefficient and largely ineffective in dissolving network groups, such as Al-Qaeda or the Taliban. Another shortfall of realism in the 21st century is that it is pessimistic, drastically so, and assumes the idea of a Hobbesian world in which anarchy prevails on the global stage and that states act selfishly in the name of survival. They are motivated by competition, diffidence, or glory. Realism, then, could be argued to be an unhelpful position to take in international relations. A recent case to consider would be the genocide in Rwanda, in which the UN failed to prevent the deaths of millions of members of the Tutsi tribe. Had we not taken such a self-interested approach, many could have been saved. There are clear advantages and criticisms of realism as an international relations theory. So, there may be a middle ground that we can hold. Generally, it is accepted that to take any extremist position is to be ignorant and close-minded. Perhaps we must take these theories with a pinch of salt, so to speak. All theories are useful to an extent, so it may well be the case that opposing theories must be used in accordance with one another. For example, a realist position was reflected by the US and the UK when they allowed Indonesia to invade Timor in 1975. However, after 200,000 Timorese people were killed and more had their human rights violated, the UN, backed by the US and the UK, condemned Indonesia's aggression, thereby reflecting a liberal interventionist stance also. Since international relations is a pluralistic discipline, it seems irrational to expect a single theory to account for world events in any case. So, we may conclude by saying realism is relevant in the 21st century, but only if it is used in tandem with other theories, theories which in themselves are strong if they are used together.